If you're a health or life coach and you like to hear how other coaches make their businesses work, then stay tuned. I'm interviewing the wonderful Renata McElvany, and we're talking all about her work as a creativity coach, how she integrates activism into her work as someone who works with women of colour, and also how she's tweaked her niche and tweaked her marketing so that she gets much better results and feels much more at home in her business. Let's dive in. So, welcome, Renata, to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm so happy to have you on here. We've talked about you coming on for a while, haven't we? And it's so exciting to have you here. But before we dig into so many different topics that we're going to talk about today, we were just chatting about the things that we're going to touch on. Would you like to tell everyone just a little bit about yourself, your coaching business, and kind of how you ended up becoming a coach?
Yes, thank you so much, Laura. I'm so excited to be here as well. A little bit like girl fanning over here because I've listened to your show forever and I'm a huge fan, obviously, and I'm really excited to be here. So, yes, about me, I'm Renata. I am based out of Long Beach, California, Southern California, and I am a creativity coach supporting neurodivergent and multi-passionate women of color to have a better relationship with themselves, a more authentic and kind relationship with themselves through expressive art. And I'm really excited to dive into how we got to that point, Laura, because I think
Yes.
your help has been so huge for me to get to this point of like having this clarity of like the people that I'm working with and the kind of work that I'm doing. So I'm really excited to dive into all of it. All of it.
Yes, no, that's amazing. And I think we've talked a lot about creativity and what that means, what that word how that word lands for people, like all sorts of different things, haven't we? And again, obviously we've worked, just to so everyone knows, we've obviously worked together as you're one of my clients. So we've done quite a lot of work together around your business stuff. But I think it's been so interesting to dig into this. And there's a lot of other coaches who are certainly around my world and who I've worked with and so on who also work around creativity, but it's such a tricky one to kind of get nailed down, isn't it? Do you want to tell everyone a little bit
Absolutely.
about what our journey around how we've worked with the fact that you do like creativity is such a big part of not just your business, your life, how you show up, and some of the kind of journey that we've been around on trying to get
Yes.
that trying to get that kind of figured out in your business.
Yeah. So when I came to you, like I think we can start there. When I came to you,
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out how to frame what I do. And I just to give folks a little bit of
Hmm.
context, I studied art professionally. So I've been trained in the arts and also I've spent time in the commercial side of creativity. And I say that because going to school really prepared me to think about art in a very specific way and creativity in a specific way. And so and it's been a part of my journey since day one. I love creative expression. I love being able to use visual language to express ideas. And so I've always been really, really passionate about that. But when it came to coaching, I wasn't sure of how to really kind of translate that passion into something more tangible that could help people in a very clear way. So it's been a journey. And so when I started, I was thinking that I wanted to work, like I always knew that I wanted to work with creative people or people that are interested in creativity or that value creativity. And so the initial thought was like, let me work with people kind of like me who are other artists, other creative people. And as I started to explore what the marketing could look like and like what offerings I could create, I started to realize that I wasn't really interested in being another voice that was talking about the same things. Because if for people like me who are into creativity, who like art, we watch all the channels, and I there's so many people that are already doing amazing work that are talking about some of these topics that I felt like I wasn't really feeling like I was adding anything new to it, or like it was
Yeah.
hard to find a way, an angle, right? Like my angle, because I felt like there's people out there who are doing it already so well that it wasn't landing.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was really struggling, and I came to you and I was like, Laura, I really I don't know what I'm doing here, and I feel like I don't know who I'm talking to. And that was like a very pivotal moment. And so as we have worked together, I realized that I really want to talk to women like me, women of color who are neurodivergent, who are multi-passionate, who don't necessarily identify as creative, but like creativity, or they're curious about it. And that has been really eye-opening, because I realized that, yeah, like I don't necessarily just want to talk to artists and creatives. I want to talk to regular women like me who are interested actually in personal development, in healing, in creativity as a way to understand themselves. So I'll pause there. I think I said a lot.
Yes, no, 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 that and that's it. And I think what was highlighted from your journey around this was and I mean again, like I say, I think at one point we were talking about your niche being focused on helping creative, other creative people in the creative industry almost, wasn't it, at one point? And then I think what we
Mm-hmm.
realized was that, as you said, it wasn't quite landing. And then to kind of reimagine the way that you use that as a tool. And actually, this is, I think, so pivotal for a lot of different coaches is that the thing that you're doing is not necessarily the outcome, it's the process that gets them to the outcome. And I think that was such an important kind of thing that dropped in, wasn't it? It's like actually the creativity is it's the tool that we use for the healing actually, and that's the tool that we use. And we had a big discussion as well, didn't we, about the labels and the self-identity that people have and whether or not people self-identify as being creative, which was really interesting. So yeah, I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that. I think that conversation that we had around how are people self-identifying, like how are
Right.
your potential clients self-identifying, and do they just rule themselves out of being creative or not, was a really interesting conversation, wasn't it?
Yes, I think that's a huge, huge conversation. So you're absolutely right. I think that what I realized was that the art and the creativity is the modality. It's the tool that I'm using to help people, but it's not necessarily like the main character in the story. And so that was another shift that you have also helped me to really understand, which is to see that the emotional healing is really the main thing that I'm helping clients with, and that the creativity is the modality. And and so when it came to figuring out how to talk to my people and how to identify them, I think, or how they could self-identify, I think I realized that I didn't want to have creativity be a reason why people didn't work with me. And I
Yeah,
needed to make it very clear that this is something that you don't have to have experience in. You don't have to identify as an artist or creative to benefit from this work. And I think that I'm really proud of like the messaging now that I have, because now
yeah,
I'm making it more front and center. Like, here's how I can support you with your emotional healing. And then we are going to be using creativity to do this, but you don't have to be an expert. And I'm here to facilitate that experience. And so now I'm feeling like now it's landing. And now there's so much more range to talk about. Like, because we're working with emotional healing, and there's very specific things that neurodivergent and multi-passionate women struggle with. Now I can really lean into those emotional issues,
yeah,
and then maybe talk a little bit about creativity, but it's not as front and center.
yeah,
And I think that I ideally the person I'm working with is not gonna they're not gonna think of themselves as creative, but if they do, it's also fine. Like, it's not a
yeah,
huge deal. And I love that too, because I think that just personally feels really, really nice. Like, it lands really well to know that, like, there's an ideal client, but then there's other people kind of adjacent to
yes.
that ideal client that can still be a part of my ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely love that. I think that's amazing. Another thing kind of on the kind of side of the people that you work with and the ways in which you work is obviously that you work with women of colour, and that there's an activism element that we identified in your work quite early on that I think is really, as we've talked about, is really quite important given, especially, I mean, need I say more at the moment with stuff that's going on. I mean, it's not just in the States, is it? You know what I mean? There's like all sorts of stuff going on all over the place. But how have you found that process? Because I think for other coaches it's almost like none of us have the option of staying quiet about shit anymore, to be perfectly honest. So I feel this is quite an important conversation for anyone listening who is a coach. How have you found that, integrating that in your work as a coach and being able to kind of have that as part of what it is that you are about? It's like a flavor, isn't it, to your particular brand
Mm-hmm.
and your niche. But I think some people find it quite difficult to integrate that. But I think it's
Mm-hmm.
something that you've done really, really well, and it's always been a part of where you're at and who you are. So yeah, so how does that kind of show up in your work as a coach?
Yeah, no, that's a super important piece of the work that I do. And first of all, I think I want to name that I have been personally impacted by immigration, for
Yeah.
example, which is one of the key topics that I'm really passionate about, and it shows up in my work and also the people that I'm working with. And so that's like you're saying right now in the US, as we know, this is a really hot topic,
Mhm.
and I think it's really personal to me. So
Yeah.
I know a lot of women that are likely struggling right now who are like me, who I understand. And so for me, it's
Yeah.
almost like I don't even have to, it's not even a question. It's like I feel a responsibility to use my experience, my lived experience and my knowledge and
Yeah.
my values to direct me and to guide me along my path as a guide for other people. So it feels like a very natural thing that I'm really passionate to bring into my work, but also like almost necessary and impossible to avoid because of the moment that we're in.
Yeah.
And and so for me, that was also a bit of a journey of kind of trying to figure out the the balance, to put it bluntly. Like,
Yeah.
how do you find the balance between, because I am working with emotional healing, and I think I want to provide relief for people, and I want people to know that what they're feeling is totally normal, but at the same time we can't ignore all the systemic structural
Yeah.
issues that are impacting people. And to me, that is really important to be honest about. And like you said, have a stand on you know, I think that's something that I'm really not only passionate about, but I feel strongly about in other
Yeah.
coaches myself when I
Yeah.
work with people. I want to know that the person that I'm working with has similar values, that that
Yeah.
person understands my struggles or like what could be impacting me. And also that a lot of the issues that oftentimes we internalize as being our fault or like a flaw, a personal flaw, really are structural. And there's bigger
Yeah.
forces out there that are impacting how we experience life, especially as people of color. And so to me, it's really important to let my potential clients and peers, collaborators, anybody that's coming into this work, to know where I stand on things. And
Yeah.
I think that creates a level of safety. And so it's also been interesting because I've had to develop my own voice as well, to speak up and to, because I, like I said, I have been impacted personally. It wasn't always easy.
Yeah.
There was a time when I didn't want to talk about certain things publicly because I felt fear, like real fear,
Yeah.
and wonder about my safety and things like that. But I've come to a place where I think I found a way to do it. For example, on Instagram, I like to share stories. I'm sharing stories all the time to let people know, like, here is this thing that you can sign, here's how you can participate, these are some organizations in our local area that you join, and things like that. And I love combining that with, like I said, with my own work, and also reminding people that art and creativity are powerful tools for self-expression, and that maybe when they take a workshop with me, when they work with me, it starts off as a way to process their emotions, but then
Yeah.
we can also take that and make that a part of your activism, your own
Yes.
activism.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love that. And I think it's such an important conversation to have. And for a lot of white women, I think we get scared of talking about it because we don't want to fuck up. Do you know what I mean? But we've got to get over that because it's too important. And I think what you've said there as well about recognition of the systemic factors that impact people's experiences, that's something that I've tried to be a lot more aware of in my work as a coach. And I think particularly for health and life coaches, like I think you've got to have an awareness of that, how that is impacting people, because it's not just, you can't just be like, well, just do this or just eat this or just change this without that understanding, that wider understanding of how people are being impacted. So, for example, recently done a workshop around energetics and mindset and stuff, but I had to be really like making sure, because you have like we're so used to the rhetoric, aren't we, in the coaching space as well, sometimes being a quite spiritual bypassy and being, quite blamey. And there's a really important conversation I think sometimes we've got to have around like, actually, maybe it's not the fact that you're not very good at manifesting, and maybe it's the fact that you've got like an insane dictator as the president right now. To be fair, do you know what I mean? I mean, this is probably, I won't probably be able to come to the States now for 5 years or whatever it is until it's off our social media record. But yeah, that's something I think is been really wonderful about your work, is the way that you've weaved it in. And I think from a messaging point of view, I know that obviously we've worked a lot on messaging. I think it's It's been such a cornerstone of what you do, and using creativity as a way of processing and healing from some of these things that people are experiencing as well. But on the kind of note of sharing content, and you were talking about Instagram there a little bit. So one of the things that you do have is the most wonderful podcast and YouTube channel. And I know that you followed my kind of searchable show method, but how did you find kind of the shift from, because you were initially doing Instagram, that was right, and then you started creating the longer form content. How did you find that shift between, yeah, like the shorter form Instagram kind of world into more of the longer form YouTube podcast world?
Yeah, no, that was a really powerful moment for me. Like you said, I was on Instagram. I've been on Instagram for a really long time, and I could never really get into it and make it I'm gonna use the hot word consistency. I struggle with that for a long time because I first of all, I think I as I mentioned earlier, I couldn't figure out who I was talking to,
Mm.
and I wasn't sure about what I was selling. And then on top of that, I'm like, I don't think I'm really vibing with what Instagram is asking of me. So I had to rethink my marketing to make it sustainable and to make it align with the way that I work. And that's a right, that's a whole conversation that we can have around what is natural to us versus what tools we think we should be using, and kind of finding that alignment. And
Yeah.
so for me, when I came work with you, I was really interested in learning from you how to set up this searchable show, because like I said, I'm a big fan of your podcast as well. And I was like, oh my God, I love how she is always like on, like every week I can expect a new episode. And I love that I can, if I'm busy and on the go, I love to listen to the podcast. And if I'm at home washing dishes, like I'll turn on YouTube, and I love watching you. And so I love the accessibility aspect of it. And I also
Yeah.
love that it seemed like you were just flowing and doing it very
Oh, thank
smoothly. And
you.
so I was like, oh my God, how can I replicate that? Because I think that really resonates with me. And so we worked together and set up my show, and it's been such a game changer. I am obsessed. I am so passionate about doing the podcast. First of all, because I think it just feels so natural for me. I'm a talker, as folks can probably tell. And I love being on podcasts and doing my own. So it's just like, of course, why wasn't this more obvious to me before? And then I think that I really enjoy the long video format, because I get to really dive into the topics that I'm talking about. And I think, especially when it comes to YouTube, for example, I love that I feel less urgency to be like showy and performative for the sake of appearing attractive or impressive,
Yeah.
when really the work that I'm doing is less about that. It's actually goes against what I'm trying to do with my work,
Yeah.
where I'm trying to help people to be more authentic. To I almost have to mirror to people, like, you don't have to perform, you don't have to
Hmm.
be, to use a divergent language of masking. You don't have
Yeah.
to pretend you're something that you're not. Or you and that's also a journey, but you can do it in a way that works for you. And so for me, long form content has been such an incredible shift, because I get to really say what I want to say. I get to talk in a way that feels more natural. And then with the piece of around consistency, once I figured out my process and my structure of how things needed to work, I I didn't have to be basically reinventing the wheel every week, because I already knew what I needed to be doing. And so it's been about a year and a half now that I've been podcasting, and now I have a process. And I'm like, okay, Sunday night I'm writing my script. On Monday I start to record, and there's just a process, and I don't have to be overthinking. And that's so important to me, because I have limited amount of time to work on my marketing and my business. And so to have a clear sense of what I'm supposed to be doing to make progress in my business has been so helpful. And so now I'm actually at a point where I'm starting to bring my own guests on my podcast. And that's also super cool, because I get to network in a way that feels
Hmm.
really soothing to me and to my nervous system. And yeah, and so I can go on and on about all the great things that I have found through the Searchable show.
Yeah. Oh no, that's amazing. And we'll put a links obviously to where people can listen and watch and everything. But I think it's just it's been so nice seeing you take this on and be so consistent with it. You know, and we were just talking about like your thumbnails, how amazing they are, and it's really lovely to see. And it's, I mean, you still obviously post on Instagram as well, don't you? So it's not been either or. And do you do TikTok as well? I think you do, don't you? Or did you do TikTok for a bit?
Yeah, I was doing TikTok for a bit until
Yeah.
things got insane in this
Yes.
country, and I had
Oh
to
yes, of course,
leave
yeah.
that platform.
Yes, it did get a
Yeah,
bit crazy back there, didn't it, for a little bit? It's just been really good to see how you've taken that on. And then for like for any other coaches who are obviously the other coaches who are listening and watching, which there will be, have you got any advice to anyone who's maybe feeling like a bit like you were kind of initially, like a little bit stuck, you're not quite sure about how your niche is landing and things like that. Like what advice would you give someone in a similar position who's maybe kind of feeling like you were that uns you know, a bit unsure, maybe a bit like the marketing's not quite working at the minute. Like, is there any advice that you would give, given that you've been through so much over the last little while?
yes, yes, definitely. I think my biggest piece of advice for folks in a similar spot would be to experiment. And what I mean is you're gonna have to try a lot of different things to really see what fits. And I think that's a big misconception that we get when we're just consuming content online and stuff, is that everybody's supposed to do it the same way, or you know, you think, oh, I really admire this person, I should do it that way. Like, I admire you, but ultimately, even though our shows are similar, I still kind of have to make some tweaks that are more specific to me and my niche and things like that. And so there's no way to really get around that by thinking about it, or like getting stuck in your head or being perfectionistic about it. Like, that's just gonna get you stuck. And I think the better way to figure out the answers and understand what works for you is by trying different things and holding it loosely. Because I know that when I was starting to work with you, I was like, oh, it has to be this. Like, I figured it out, and then I would have to make a shift, and I would be telling you like, oh, I'm struggling, Laura. I don't even. I feel like I feel overwhelmed, and I feel like
Yeah,
this is too hard, and I'm not sure if it's making sense. Or it got to a point where I almost felt like I wanted to quit because
yeah,
I felt like I wasn't getting it right. And
yeah,
so if you go into it with more of a mindset of, let's see, let's be curious, like, let me explore if this different angle works better or if it lands with people, and testing it and be more of a scientist in experimenting with things. I think
yeah.
you're gonna have a much easier time, and you're gonna enjoy the process, and you're not gonna, again, blame yourself because something didn't work. But I love that you always help me and coach me through that process
Mm-hmm.
of like, it just didn't work. Let's try
Yeah,
something else. It's not
yeah.
really, don't make it a personal thing. It's more of like, this thing you tried and it didn't work, and like, let's try a different angle. And so that was really important to me, and I think that's what I would love to pass on to other people on a similar
Yeah.
spot.
No, I love that. I think that's such a good piece of advice, and I think it is that experimentation. I think often a lot of newer coaches kind of think, you know, as I did at the start of mine, is that you kind of do this and you get a certain result. And I mean, to a certain degree, yes, like, and again, part of my work is obviously helping people direct people towards things that I think, with my experience, are going to work more quickly. But even with the best will in the world, like, there is a process of experimentation, isn't there, that needs to happen to figure out. And it's not just about what kind of works out in the world, but what works for
Mm-hmm.
you, and kind of figuring out what is going to be like the thing that drops in for you, or what the form of showing up is for you. So yes, I think that's a very good piece of advice. It's been like so good to hear your what your journeys look like. And again, I think that piece of advice at the end there about being open to experimenting is so, so important. I think it makes a massive difference. And just to say you have been part of Wholehearted Business, I am going to do a shameless plug for anyone who's listening, because I am opening Wholehearted Business quite soon. So if anyone wants to get the kind of support that Renata's had, then please do check out all of the Wholehearted Business stuff. But enough about me doing me shameless plugging. Let's shameless plug you and your amazing work. Please, I mean, everyone, please do go and check out Renata's stuff, because it is absolutely amazing. And you get to, you know, if anyone's curious about seeing how YouTube works for someone other than me in my kind of situation and in my niche, like, it's a great example, because YouTube, I think, is just such a, I mean, obviously you have the podcast as well. I know you also do Instagram, but I'm such a YouTubey person right now. I think it's awesome. But anyway, where can people find you online? And we'll put all the links in as well.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Yeah, the best place to get in touch with me is my website, and that would be my name, renatamcalvany.com. And you can check out my freebie that I have for anybody that is struggling to create, and they're like, how do I, do this? How do I start to use creativity? That workbook, I have a free workbook there that will guide you through that process with very simple exercises, and it walks you through how to sit with yourself and relax so that you can really make the most out of creativity.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, I love that. We'll put all the links in, also all the links for YouTube, podcast, Instagram, and everything as well. So please do go and give some love to Renata and her spaces online. But thank you so much for being here. It's been a great conversation. I always love chatting to you anyway, but it's even better on the air show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura. I really appreciate it.